So I'm
Okay.
Arla Markael, and I'm so excited to introduce a very luminous, beautiful, amazing friend, Molly Douglas, who we'll get to how we met here in a little bit, but I am so excited to introduce everybody to her and slash everybody to me. And yeah, Molly, I know that you've had a podcast for a while, and we decided to kind of joint venture this together. So would you share a little bit about you and who you are and the name of your podcast and what it is that's the medicine and the joy that you have of bringing a message to the world?
Aw, thanks, Arla. I really appreciate that. Yes. Thank you so much for that introduction. That was beautiful. I am Molly Douglas, and I'm the founder and creator of Lit from Within Mystery School. And yeah, introductions are hard. I really do love to just guide women through the sacred feminine, healing and sensual arts. I feel it's a multidimensional type of soul work. I use trauma informed practices of embodiment. I'm also a visionary and artist, art therapist, priestess, mystic. I spent pretty much 2 decades being a mental health therapist and art therapist. And yeah, I really have worked on integrating this practice to balance the head and the heart, the psychological and the spiritual. And the podcast came from just this raw mix of authenticity and vulnerability, which I didn't even know what it meant to be authentic when until I got to grad school, going through my art therapy practice and figuring out going through my own wounds and discovering what was truly on the inside underneath all the layers. And the spiritually naked with soul, the spiritually naked, like stepping out of the spiritual closet, like that did not happen for a long, long time. I've worked really hard to keep all that stuff in the closet, especially in the clinical setting, you know, kind of keeping all that separate. And I was always really interested in all that stuff as a kid. And I loved all the things to do with the mystical and the magical and astrology. And, I did oracle readings and tarot readings in college. And that was kind of separate. But, it wasn't until I started diving into those things that I didn't, I was kind of my own guinea pig and I didn't know what was truly going on and until I started doing all the shadow work. And yeah, it's such a vulnerable process to do your own work. And when I started bringing in these spiritual tools like chakras and the body work, and art therapy in itself is out of the box for mental health anyway, so I've always kind of felt out of the box. But
Well, pioneer, really. I mean, you're a
yeah,
pioneer because not only are you doing that stuff, but I also know you well enough to know that you're also talking about how things feel in the body and about using like pleasure and using those things about the body to help calm the body and to help, so you're kind of in, at least there as I can tell, kind of a pioneer in this because not everybody is talking about all these pieces together the way that you are. So
yeah,
and so you're bringing all these pieces together, not just the from the therapist view, but it's like I don't know of any other speaker out there who's been a therapist and has all of the pieces that you bring together along with the divine feminine, along with the mystery school stuff, along with the mystical, along with the star seed. And so I love it. I eat it up when I get to have time with you.
uh thanks. Yeah. I mean, I love Carl Jung, and he paved the way with, like, the archetypes, and that really has been my sacred roadmap for my own journey. And even like his the mandalas, and the anima and animus and twin flame journey, and like it all has just been this whole inner and outer journey, and this coming back to wholeness and the unity consciousness, and this this starseed journey that we're on. Joseph Campbell had the hero's journey, and Maureen Murdoch had the heroine's journey, and this truly has felt, you know it feels like the starseed's journey. And the divine feminine path has been this awakened path of coming back, even though our therapists may not have known that the tools have always been that way, but unconsciously for me, they have held that container of the body, the creativity, the intuition, the higher self, trusting the process to unfold, not focusing on the end, and just allowing it to form in the moment. And it has been the process, the connection to that highest soul expression, in order to really allow that to connect. And through that, it is the shadow work. It's released the the old patterns, the old behaviors, the ancestral patterns, the inherited patterns, star seeds, those that feel like they don't belong. The
Isolation.
Yes, right. That feel different. We used to call them the black sheep, but I like them as the sparkly unicorns.
I
Feel
love that
like they're
because I always said I'm the black white sheep of my family.
yes,
Because the
exactly, right.
oddball, but I wasn't, yeah, I didn't participate. I mean, I love my family dearly and I'm so close to them, but I was like, I'm not going to smoke. And, like all these other things that just
Uh,
didn't resonate with me. And so I was always laughing. I'm like, yeah, I'm the black white sheep.
we don't fit in. It's just different because we're here to break the chains, break the patterns that have been going on for generations and generations. And we can talk about this later, but that's where the archetype of the divine alchemist came in. And when I started channeling those back 7 years ago, like back in 2000, well, no, like 9 years ago, but yeah, when that whole journey began with the goddess, the awakening journey with the goddess, that was, the divine alchemist. It was like, these are like for the age of light. These are for, a new way of being, for a new journey. These are for a new earth. These are for what's coming. So yeah, these are for not a me thing, but a we thing.
Right. And
And
it feels like whole being wellness. It's not just like, so many times we focus on like one aspect of our lives, whether it's health or whether it's spirituality or whether it's our psyche or whatever. And I feel like in a lot of ways, this is like kind of bringing all of those pieces together for whole well-being, not just one piece. And that's something I admire and appreciate about you too, is like in conversation and even in our trip to Egypt, there was a lot of like, I could sense that in you, that you were feeling into, for your own whole well-being, you were feeling into the different choices you made, even whether it was coming to food or time to like journal and be alone or whatever. It was like feeling into that whole being wellness, which is something I really appreciate about you and something that's been percolating in my heart for a long time too. So yeah.
yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about you, Arla, and how we met and what brought us together. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. Yeah, so we met in Egypt. And do you want me to just go ahead and share what I remember and then you can jump in and
No, tell me. So, I would love for you to share about you, and yeah, about because you have some amazing gifts, and how we connected in Egypt. And yeah, I would love for you to share about, yeah, definitely about your, like, what brought you to Egypt, and yeah, like, yeah,
yeah.
where we're, yeah.
So I I'll just kind of give a quick background. I grew up in a home that I went through a lot of trauma, especially with my father, and so did all of my siblings. And we were super religious, like fundamentalist Christian, and our property actually got bought out by, my understanding was, the Amish. Because we were very like self-sufficient and, wore dresses all the time, and we were almost like Mennonites, or very legalistic in a lot of ways. And then when I went to college, I started really deep diving into not just my spirituality. So I actually spent about 15 years in a church cult at that point. And I really look back and I think it's just such a miracle. It's totally the Starseed journey that pulled me kind of out of that, just becoming fully aware that what I was living was not life abundant the way that Jesus talked about, and it was misery. And there's a whole bunch of pieces there. That's another conversation. And so I actually almost got a second bachelor's of biblical studies while I was getting my teaching degree in history and health. And so I've had all these like different passions and just this desire to learn, but also in the middle of that, really realizing I wanted to be a whole being. Like I wanted to experience healing in all of the different aspects of my life. And really coming out of a lot of that, it was definitely a long process. And then realizing the whole Starseed journey and what it means to be a Starseed and all that, that was a whole nother like, whoa, piece from my world that really radically shifted a lot of things for me. And then it was about a year ago at this time, actually in last November, I was listening to, anyway, just to backtrack to also other things that were really, really important were music and singing. I had done a lot of like choir and singing in high school and in all the years that I was at church. And so music and all that piece was really, really important, mostly because I feel like I could let go and just have that divine connection. And for me, it wasn't so much about like the religiousness of it, but just like a flow of unconditional love back and forth. And so there was something really special for me about music and about that piece with music. So anyway, I was watching a lot of Robert Everett Grant and other people that had been going to Egypt, and I was like, I really want to go to Egypt. And no kidding, one day I was at Home Depot, and there was this gorgeous sunset in the sky. It was the most beautiful sunset and the most intense one I'd seen in a long time. And so I took a picture of it, a couple pictures, and I didn't even see this in the picture until I got home, and I pulled up the picture and I put this on my Facebook post, but there was literally a pyramid on fire in the middle of that picture. And about a couple weeks later, a friend of mine who I had opened my home to when she needed it said, hey, I'm going to Egypt, and I'm wondering if it's on my heart to ask you if you want to go too, and I'll pay for your way. And so I was like, that's like a beautiful, profound, huge gift. And yes, and part of me felt also just a little bit like, have I done enough to deserve that? And that's like such a big thing. But it was just such a precious gift. And at the time too, I had been reading the Sophia Code. So I was really awakening to the divine feminine. I was experiencing a ton of like synchronicities and miracles and just really cool, sometimes small things. Like I was at the office one day and I was walking someone through a proprietary pain release package that I had put together for my spa. And I had just traveled to the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas the day before, and I had traveled through this little town, and I was sharing with this woman about the divine feminine, the compassion, and specifically about Kuan Yin, and because I had synchronicities leading up to that with the whole interaction with Kuan Yin in that chapter. And it turned out that in the middle of the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas is supposed to be the statue of Kuan Yin. And so I'm sharing with this woman, and she starts crying, and she's like, I just moved here and I needed this so much. And I said, where did you come from? And she said, I just moved here from Thompson Falls, which is the town that we had just traveled through the day before to go to the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas. And so it was just like all of these little things. It was like the universe just dropping so many things into place. And so then going into Egypt was the same thing. It's like I knew that my life was going to change dramatically. There was all these synchronicities and miracles happening. And then money that I'd been waiting for 2 years dropped into place, so I didn't have to worry while I was there. And so it was just really, really amazing to experience all that, and in the middle of all these changes that the universe had planned for me. And so that's actually how we met. And I don't know if you want to pick it up from there, but
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and I think so many people can relate to, the religious, background, upbringing, and having those questions come up of, the balance between spiritual and religious and the inner authority versus the outer authority, and, you know, feeling the questions come up from within versus out. And yeah,
Yeah, that whole
and
divine
that.
sovereignty. Yeah, piece. Well, not like you and I were talking about last time, we were joking around because I was saying how, so one of the things I had done, we talked about this before, is that I had studied the ancient Sumerian, which is really interesting because really the Bible stories kind of come from the ancient Sumerian, because the ancient Sumerian, which is thousands of years older, has all the stories of Adam and Eve and all this stuff too. And I remember I was like in this situation where I was like, I never had resonated with the God of the Old Testament because it was so legalistic, and so like he sanctioned killing of babies, and he sanctioned all these things that I just felt like this does not align with Jesus. And it's interesting, there's some verses in the Bible that kind of indicate that Jesus didn't align. Like there's one verse where he talks about your father's not my father. So there's some recognition that there might be some discrepancies in here between the Old Testament. But
Yeah.
so it's funny how you and I were talking about it and realizing that really, that the intense jealousy and the anger and all that stuff, if the God of the Old Testament was my boyfriend right now, you, Molly, would be telling me that I need a different
Right. Right.
right?
Like that energy is not healthy. That's toxic.
Right. And how that didn't resonate with me. And so really learning a sense of divine sovereignty, like listening to my inner guidance, the heart that says, no, that's not, I wouldn't treat someone else that way. So why would the God of the universe, who like our source, who is both male and female, and loves and nourishes, how could that, if I can love, for example, my children unconditionally, and that source loves us unconditionally, there's no way I'm a better lover, you know what I mean, like of the soul than source, because we're one. Jesus said all the time, the Father and I are one, and we're one. And so if we can love that way, you have to know that there's something just off about it, and being able to recognize that has been a really big deal for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and then recognizing that there's also a grief process that goes into that too, and in your background in grief and loss, and holding space for that too. And that's come up a lot within, the women, the clients that I see, and the groups, and the need, right, of being raised, no matter how you were raised, within, Christian backgrounds, that there is those stories that are coming up for women around, our age and generations, that are seeking these questions and answers, and wanting to explore this and that need. But coming back to, these solo trips and Egypt and finding our way here and connection. But yeah, we were we were finding ourselves, in these really beautiful temples and sacred sites, and, connecting in these really beautiful, juicy conversations just like this on the Sophia Code, and with, Robert Edward Grant and the
And some
Divine
of your
Goddess,
travels, yeah,
and what?
some of your travels and what you've done, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, and some of my, some of my travels and places, sacred sites I've been, and Bali and Costa Rica and Glastonbury, and yeah, there's lots of things that have happened there that we'll be exploring more too, talking about. But yeah, the goddesses and the thousand faces of the goddess, but one that really landed close to our hearts that I'd like to just share a little bit too on was, Lumeria
Mm-hmm.
and Atlantis and Hawaii, and recognizing this connection that goes even deeper than, Avalon and Glastonbury and Mary Magdalene and Yeshua. And we did connect really deep within that lineage line and the priestess of the rose, but also, what went deeper, and this light language that came through your voice That was so like a recognition of home is the best way to describe it. It was just a recognition of home that came through the King's Chamber. And I mean, there was already a homecoming that I know we'll explore more when, we'll talk more about Egypt down the line, but working on creative projects together as groups, which is one of the beautiful things that happens when, you follow this when you follow your soul, when you say yes to this, soul's divine awakenings and these, adventures, and you find soul family and you connection to family. But within so Egypt has these temples that are frequencies that are, how would you describe them? Like,
exactly. Like they're, if you'd listen to like Matthias, he's talking about how they each have, it's almost like their own musical notes there, but they're
now, right?
Yeah.
For those that don't know his work.
And he remembers pretty much all of his past lives, which I find fascinating. I only remember some of mine, but yeah, he talks about that, how it's like these were set up as almost like musical notes, or they bring these frequencies, and which is what music is frequencies, right? And so just to kind of go back to the King's Chamber, there was just so much love that was, I just felt like while we were there. And it was so funny because you and I both experienced while we were, it smells in there. It's like god awful smell. And it feels intense going in there because you're climbing these stairs, and it takes a long time. And it was hot and humid and stinky, and so there was a part of me that, I think you talked about this too, I was kind of ready to go back down already.
You have to crawl, and the fear is so heightened. Like, it was heightened before I even got there. Like, for me, it was just this whole from fear to freedom kind of theme. Even just being in Egypt or in Cairo. Like, certain places in Egypt were different, but even just Cairo itself is a chaotic energy, and the frequencies around the pyramids of Giza are just so intense and otherworldly, beyond anything I could ever have imagined. Like just being on psychedelics, but you don't need to be on anything, but just so hard to stay in the body. Like, I was anchored. I was so anchored, like had this fanny pack full of crystals to anchor me down, weigh me down like a weighted, like a weight belt, because I was so afraid I was going to just keep coming out of my body, because I did not think I could, even just being outside the pyramid, there's just a vibration. There's just a vibration that was straight into the solar plexus, just looking at it from the outside, that just hit a fear frequency for me.
So
it was so intense.
Going up in there definitely is intense, and it's really interesting because in Freddie Silva's book about the Knights Templar, he goes into how all of these ancient cultures and ancient stories, including the Knights Templar, they use rose quartz granite. And it turns out right now in modern day science, there's a neurosurgeon that discovered that when you lay down in something that's rose quartz granite, it actually helps your brain switch from the logical linear to the more spiritual side. And so, of course, with the pyramid being the entire King's Chamber is all rose quartz granite. And so, I can totally feel why it felt that way for a lot of us, because it was shifting us into that spiritual side. And I even had visions of, probably in past history, at priestesses going up. And I in the vision, I felt like I went up with, and I don't know if I was one of them, I'm assuming that's why I had the vision, but we would go up above the pyramid and we would hold out our hands and light would come from our hands. And so there's just this really strong sense of being in the spiritual and ethereal realms when you're there, which makes it really interesting, because they say even a lot of the dictators who have gone and spent the night in the pyramid, they no longer want to conquer the world because there's just something so spiritual about that experience. But what I appreciated and what was so beautiful is just all of the voices coming together, because we did sound bowl meditation in there, and just it was just so beautiful. We just started like singing around each other. I felt like it was just angelic voices around each other, and I just had this sense of like we were sending love out to the planet. And I kept getting this phrase lahiatu, lahiatu, which when I got back to the US, I did a little research and discovered it's Tongan, which Tongan was also a part of Lemuria, so kind of back to our Lemurian roots, and it means sending love. So that was such a powerful thing to like realize that's exactly what we were doing. We were sending love from a very resonant chamber out into the planet. One of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had.
It was incredible. It was so incredible. It really was.
Your voice gave mine a lot of courage. Like I would start to back off or get a little bit scared because I feel like I'm kind of out of practice when it comes to singing, even though that was a big part of my life. And just having your voice, because you were really close to me, and you would come in, and then I would just like have this freedom to like let loose. There was just something beautiful about that synergy together that I'll treasure for my whole life.
Likewise. Likewise. There was something so home. It was just such a familiarity when that happened. And like, I finally took off like my crystal bell. Like if there was a safety that happened in that chamber. There were two things that happened. One, I recognized that there was a story that took place in there when Jocelyn shared that, and Jocelyn was our guide for the trip, Jocelyn Starfeather, when she was sharing about the pharaohs who would, when they came to reign again for the next 30 years, they would have to lay in the sarcophagus. I think you helped put this together too, now that I'm recalling this, that when they came to reign for another 30 years, they would have to lay in there, and their souls would leave. And if their souls made it back, then they would reign for another 30 years. And I feel like I might have been one of the souls that didn't make it back. That might have been one of the stories, but I also think I was maybe one of the priestesses that had the recall. That was one of the recalls too, to help recall, because when you sang that song, it was like, oh, I remember that. Like, and there was something about the harmonies, and I've always loved harmony since I was a kid. My parents had this like electric organ, and I remembered like all like playing the notes as a kid and just harmonizing with each of the notes and just going down and like playing with each one. And that was like just something I really loved doing as a kid. I never liked piano. I never liked anything like that, but I loved harmonizing, and it was so fun. And that's what it reminded me of. And like that's, I think that's something that's coming back, is the singing, the toning, the voice, the light language, the speaking, like that's been a witch wound or a priestess wound. And when that happened in the chamber, was a homecoming. It was such a powerful homecoming. And, part of that story was that, that energy, that frequency came down and all the way through, like all the way through. That was just so powerful and so beautiful. And it was just felt through the whole chamber. Like that was a group experience.
Yeah.
It was such a beautiful group experience.
Yeah. It definitely felt like it was multiple duets blending together, and a lot of different voices, but just like it's like this gorgeous dance together in there. And and then at the end, I just remember looking over at you, and you had tears, and I was like, so deeply touched, through the whole thing. And I could tell that you were really deeply touched as well. And I'm feeling dizzy all of a sudden too. Like right now, I'm like, oh, I'm remembering that and feeling myself a little heady here. But yeah, there's just a beauty to that and just absolutely precious. But I feel like the whole trip, like I remember the first couple of days, I didn't actually get to know you very well. I don't know if we even talked the first couple of days, but I just was drawn to you. Like I just felt like that's a sister. Like that's a soul sister. There's something in there. There's something that so I wanted to get to know you, and it was just really, really fun. And then this is just kind of a fun story too. At the end, we were both staying longer in Egypt. We had a couple days of just like absorbing and basically, I feel like trying to integrate codes and stuff. Yeah. And I really wanted more time with you because I really felt like we're supposed to work together. And I felt kind of bad because then your whole reservation fell through. And so I was like, oh, did I manifest that? Because I really wanted her to be with me because I didn't mean to mess up her plans and her reservation, but I really wanted more time together with you. And so that was really wild that they literally could not find your reservation. You had prepaid for it. You had the proof right there on your credit card and they would not budge. And so I got what I wanted, which was more time with you at the hotel that I was staying at. So.
Yeah. You were like, you and Arrow, your roommate, were like the only ones left that day. Like, and the Egyptian aide that was still there, and like everything was booked. Like seriously, like everything was booked. Nobody had space for me anywhere. Like it was wild.
Yeah.
Like it was.
I wanted to cry for you. I was like, I knew it was stressful, and you handled it like a champ. Like you were like so calm and so peaceful throughout it, but I'm sure you didn't feel that way on the inside.
No, I was spinning. I was spinning a little bit. Yeah, that was kind of scary, but at the same time, I was like, I was so grateful and like, yeah. So, because everybody was leaving, like everybody was leaving that day.
Right.
I didn't know what I was going to do. I was so grateful you guys were still there and that you offered me your room. I could stay. And then once we got to the hotel, like the hotel was amazing and they treated me so great and they gave me like candy and apples and they were just like, we'll take care of you. And then I had my own room the next day. And then, yeah, we got to spend more time together and we had Hawaii connections and just like, vision for, the future of what we want to do and collaborations. And we've stayed so connected and connected with, other women in the group and creative
those
projects. And
some more rich conversations too, because we kept like, it's just funny because before I even left for Egypt, I had asked my soul, where do you want to live? If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you want to live? And I was like, Kauai. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, I've been to Kauai and I loved it and it was beautiful, but I was like, it just was such a funny thing. And then when you and I started talking about like the wellness center, and I had a wellness center at the time, a spa wellness center, and just like all of these, and then finding out that Kauai was part of Lemuria. And I had so much Lemurian energy coming in through that point. Like even when I came back, one of my really good friends who's a starseed, she gave me a Lemurian crystal out of the blue. And like, it was just all this stuff. So we definitely have some beautiful conversations around that. So yeah, while we're kind of talking about all this, all of a sudden the question came to my mind, and we don't have to have a total answer for this right now, but I kind of thought, what is it that with all these beautiful energies that we have experienced, I feel like that's part of the reason why we're wanting to do this podcast, is because there's so much love and richness and luminescence and all that we get to put out into the world by doing this together. And I'm really excited about that. I just have to say that. Yeah.
Yes. Agreed. This is such a beautiful energy for this 1212 portal, which we're recording on today. The Divine Alchemist, which was the number that channeled through with that archetype. which is all about the heart lens, living and loving and leading through the heart lens, not the head lens.
Mhm.
And, that's also knowing that we are our own self healers. We
Mm,
are our own alchemists.
yeah.
We are, we don't need, you know, we're multidimensional beings that can release on multidimensional levels, so we can heal on multidimensional levels, but we can also travel on multidimensional levels. So, that grid working, even if we're not, just like right now, neither one of us are necessarily in Hawaii, but that doesn't mean we're not doing that work, that those energetic frequencies aren't, moving through us at this time, or, working with those ley lines. And even Egypt, right? Like I was in a restorative yoga class in, Iowa, where I am currently, and I was in full embodiment of the Sphinx when I when I was in a restorative, pose, and I was feeling that frequency of the Sphinx like none other. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I am so feeling the Egypt codes right now. So, like, we can run these frequencies and these energies just knowing that we are a multidimensional being. And it's
Good.
hard when we're constantly in, running in the old stories or old wounds.
Yeah, we were talking about that this morning, when we first connected this morning, is like all the old, like how we were both feeling really heavy, like our bodies felt heavy. And it's so funny when you just said that we can do self-healing, because I just realized while you were saying that what shifted for me, how I got out of that super heavy feeling was, when I was showering, I was kind of meditative, and I was like, God, why am I feeling like this? Why do I feel so heavy? And then I was reminded that a lot of times I've been talking a lot lately about using the power of our voice and light language to heal our body. And I was like, well, since that's something I've been talking about and I've been doing, this might be a good moment to actually do that. And I forgot that I did that when I was in the shower. And so I just broke out in light language. And the thing I love about light language is that it bypasses my mind. It bypasses like what I think I should be speaking to my body, and it just goes right into like something deeper and more profound. And yeah, I didn't realize how much that shifted me until I started moving around. And then you said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that was even, but it was really heavy energy. And like we were talking about earlier, I think I had started to slide back into, because I was doing some release work, and I had started to go back into that energy of like trying to be perfect and have it all together and make sure that I knew everything that I was supposed to be doing. And I can easily slide into that, like I'm supposed to know all this, like everything should be known. And that's part of the whole journey as a human, is like, no, we hid
No.
clues for ourselves, but we wanted it to be a discovery. We wanted it to
Mhm.
be an adventure. We wanted it to be our playground when we came into
Mm.
lifetime. And I think so easily, because of growing up learning to be really hard on myself and punishing, lots of self-punishment and closing in my voice, that realizing that this morning was a really big shift. It was really, really helpful. So thank you for reminding me
Mm.
of that, because
Mm. Ooh, yeah, punishing. Yeah, that one comes up a lot with that wound, right? That religious wound that comes up with the priestess wound. This is the priestess path when we are walking and talking in an unconventional way, right? When we are moving through this path, the priestess path. Is would you want or be willing to do any light language for
right
us
now.
today? Yeah, if you're feeling called.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me where my soul is like, just let go. I'm gonna cry, because that stuff always, everything feels vulnerable, and that's again the wounds from the past of like the voice being shut down and all that stuff. And that was something that in Egypt was really, really powerful, was opening that throat chakra back up And
Or how
so,
many times were you persecuted for it, right? Like the priestess wound, or doing any kind of spiritual work or speaking anything or using it and having it not be safe.
yeah. Well, let's do that right now, and just around that for anybody else that is feeling that wound around their voice. And I'm just going to shift into allowing it to come out, and we'll just see where it takes us, because I think there's something that Spirit wants to download through it right now. So. I just had this sense of the divine arms wrapping, the mother arms wrapping around that wound for so many of us, and just putting a soothing balm of healing.
Feeling that move through the throat chakra, clearing out anything that no longer serves, anything that does not belong, anything that is not a purpose, that dims, that shuts down, that blocks the energy, the frequency.
Feel this sense of Spirit holding us in hands of love, palms of love, and just trust. Just an energy of it's safe to trust, it's safe to experience, it's safe to move forward. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful energy. It's so weird when I experience light language, because it's different almost every time.
That was incredible, Arla. I felt that in my throat and in my heart. That was beautiful. And Sylvie jumped up on my lap.
Oh,
We've got the Lyran energy here. I think that was channeling through, helping clear that as well. That was really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
for drying it out of me.
That was incredible. I think that's exactly what needed to come through with this. That was amazing. Yeah.
It felt very nurturing and big at the same time. Yeah, probably big for me because it feels vulnerable, but just so nurturing. There was just something I just kept picturing, this beautiful hands that hold that small the wounded part of us with just so much love, and just that ability to sink in and trust and receive that healing energy.
Yeah, the heart guides for the divine alchemist are, it's always been Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, Archangel Raphael. Those have been the really big ones for for the guides and role models. If you'd like, I can share a little bit about the curriculum for the course that I have available.
Absolutely. That would be awesome. Yeah. I love it.
I'll just share just a little bit.
I love that your cat jumped on your lap. That's so cute. I love it. Cats are they're more sensitive than people realize. Like they're really, they're energy monitors for sure.
Well, and the Divine Alchemist is, it is an archetype for the Age of Light, but it's a frequency. And the archetypes are just frequency, as above, so below, right? So it's also the crystals. It runs across a frequency. It's the higher heart kind of energy frequency. So there's a heart-centered journey meditation. We make a visual heart portal, create a sacred altar. There's recorded calls. We work with the chakras and the light body. There's a chakra guided meditation and getting to know your higher chakras. And we work with the diamond light body. There's a chakra energy release video and a diamond light breathing meditation. And there is moving from woundedness to wisdom, integrating the shadow into the light with the Phoenix Rising story, using the AHA method, which is a method that I've used for alchemizing, including energy work, an art therapy method, guided visualization, and quantum healing. We work with Mary Magdalene, learning to trust her again, working with the priestess wound and the sisterhood wound, connecting into the ancestral wound, rewriting your DNA through creative, intuitive journaling, working with Kuan Yin, breaker of ancestral chains, art of kintsugi, repairing the vessel to find the value in the mother wound. So learning to nourish and heal with that gold any of those wounds we have inherited from not putting value in self-nourishment and putting ourselves last and allowing ourselves to feel whole again, to come back to ourselves. So releasing the fear and being able to see through the eyes of loving all of our parts and dancing with the goddess Tara. Those are all the archetypes of the Divine Alchemist. And I do have a code of 1212 where you can get 12% off of the course.
Nice. I like it. So we can put that when we post this video, we'll put the link to that in there. And how long will the 1212 discount be good for? Or is it just to infinity?
We can put it for a few months. We can put it out there. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I'm so excited for people to experience these different downloads. Will you tell us just really quick a little bit about how you experienced the channeling for these divine archetypes and kind of what happened and how that came into being?
Oh, well, they came through just through my own shadow work, through my own soul journey, what was coming through. So with my own spiritual awakening with the divine feminine, like, when I was going through the very first time I heard the word light worker, I had no idea what that meant. And I just, would hear certain things, or I would see certain numbers and it would just start coming in, or a guide would start coming to me, and, like Goddess Isis. And then it would just, another one would come and then another one. And I would just start seeing sort of repetitions with either certain frequencies or colors or stones. And I would start almost seeing a connection. And, but they would come in a certain order. So the very first one that came through was the Divine Alchemist. That was my very first one. And that was kind of back in like 2017, 2018. And at that time, I was working on the mother wound. And so that was all my heart healers. That was Kuan Yin. And Kuan Yin was just this nurturing, loving mother when my own biological mother and I just had such a complex relationship. And I needed something bigger than that. I need something outside of my mother to learn where compassion and love and understanding came from. And I did not know what that looked like and felt like. And I found this connection between feminine, divine archetype of the goddess and frequencies and hertz and rays and crystals and animal spirits. And they were all kind of on the same lineage. And this, I call it the divine feminine frequency. And it just started coming in that way. And I came down to the heart center as I embodied it. And then once I worked on that wound and released what needed to be released and reclaimed this piece, part of this key on this sacred map, which was putting myself first, kind of releasing the woundedness of the martyr of I have to do this all myself. I have to do this all alone. It was a big one. It was the overgiver, the overdoer, the cut off at the arms. Yeah, it's a big one. The wounded mother is a lot because, no one to depend on, have to do it all myself, self-sacrificing, and I still get caught up in that wound. Easy. I have a daughter that, tugs on those wounds a lot that I have to keep, correcting myself, course correcting. But then, the creatrix shows up, then we can finally open up into our creative gifts, So it has a flow. And then the high priestess, then we can tap into our own inner spiritual authority. And then our fire gets lit, and we connect into our solar feminine energies, where we really tap into our sexuality of our dakini, where we can explore our sacred sexual fires and our sexuality. And then we can tap into our holy rebel energy, where we go against the grain, where we're truly standing in our own fire and with our creative gifts and how we want to bring those out into the world. And then our siren energy comes out of how we're putting that out into the world and our frequency and our vibration and our oracular gifts. And, it has a very certain pattern that they all showed up in a rhythm and they all showed up in a certain frequency. And it's almost like it was an initiation, one and another and another and another. And I discovered that there's an even bigger pattern to it. And it's not necessarily just how it showed up for me, but they also kind of show up that way on a world level too. Yeah. That there's it's a journey. It's a heroine's journey.
Yeah. I never put two together too. Like the way you just described it, each of these archetypes is like also ties into each chakra, which I didn't quite connect the dots for that until you just started describing it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's the awakening too of each one of our chakras. Wow. That's really powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and we just need a language for it. And there's always been a language. And I think that's why archetypes have resonated with me. And I've always been a Jungian, therapist. It's always been a universal language, ever since, we've always been painting on caves. And we've always and, hieroglyphs, right? We've always had a story and a language for what was going on inside of us and outside of us. There's always been archetypes to tell a story. And our language just continues to evolve of what that looks like and who we're identifying with. And it's changing, from a 3D world to a 5D world. We just need a new language for it. And especially as women, or however way you're identifying, it's not the hero's journey anymore. I'm not even sure it's the heroine's. Like, we need a starseed journey. We need a new language for this. And that's what I'm creating. I needed it. At least I needed it. So, and if I need it, I guess I figure other people do too. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Oh,
you for
thank
bringing
you,
that.
Arla. Thank you for being on this journey with me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being on this podcast with me and wanting to just, yeah, it's so much more fun and exciting to have someone to talk to than just, trying
I
to
love
do this
that.
to a screen where I'm
It
just
feels
talking
like
to
the duet.
myself.
Yeah, it feels like the duet together.
Yes,
I love that.
exactly. Yes, it's our Lumerian duet.
I love that. That's amazing.
And we'll
Cool.
be
Well,
bringing
we
more
will.
people in. We'll be bringing more of
Yep.
an orchestra.
Other. Yes, I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Other sacred sisters and brothers, and yeah. Yeah.
yes.
So I'll post definitely the link to your course if people are interested, and that'll be on there. And yeah, I'm just so grateful
Yay.
to be on this journey. And
Yes, you as well. Tell people where they can find you and your amazing gifts, and you have wonderful things to share.
thank you,
Yes.
thank you, thank you. All right. Well, I suppose I'm gonna hit stop recording, and then yeah, we're sending lots of love. I want everybody to know that from both of our hearts, there's lahiatu, which is sending lots and lots of love and
Lahiasu.
gratitude for you joining us on this journey. So
Lahiasu. I love that.